Welcome to our presentation on decision making and innovation, Apple after Steve Jobs. This presentation explores how Apple continued to operate and innovate after losing its most influential leader. We will discuss the changes in leadership, innovation strategy, and overall decision making approach. This is our team members. The first one is Luqman Nur Hakim, Muhammad Iman Hafizi, Nur Anis Farhana, and lastly, Nur Sofyanisa.
Hi, my name is Muhammad Iman Hafizi, and I will explain about introduction and background of decision making and innovation of Apple after Steve Jobs. As we all know, Steve Jobs has passed away in 2011 that made Apple a major turning point. Jobs was not just a CEO, he was the visionary behind iconic products like iPad, iPhone, and also Mac, which reshaped the entire industry. His absence raised concern about whether Apple could maintain its creativity and innovative edge. Tim Cook, who took over the CEO position, he is a very different type of leader. He is more instinct-driven, design-first approach, and he is more into collaborative style and strong focus on operation and supply chain management. This gives us question like, could Apple remain the same innovative company without Jobs? This bring us to background, which is we have after the Steve Jobs passing, there are two main views emerge about Apple direction. First, Apple has lost its soul. Critics say Apple shifted from bold innovation to profit and efficiency. People say this because Apple become more focused on profit and operational efficiency instead of the big game-changing ideas like Steve Jobs do. At the second one, product changes become more incremental. People notice that most update of the new model of product was just a small improvement, like just a better camera and just a small features added to the model, instead of brand new category of products. The third one, Johnny Ive's departure in 2019 symbolized declining creativity because Johnny Ive was one of the key creative forces behind Apple's most iconic product. His resignation made many believe the company has lost a major part of its creative identity. For the second view, which is Apple innovation evolved. Innovation continued, but in a more structured and collaborative way. Some people say Apple didn't stop innovating, but it simply changed the approach, relying more on teamwork and data-driven processes. The second point, which is shift from single vision leadership to team-driven decision making. Instead of depending on one visionary like Steve Jobs, Apple now use collective expertise across departments to develop new ideas, to create a new product. The last point from the second view is leader face non-program decision and new challenges with no past example. Tim Cook and his team had to make many complex decisions, especially when entering new market or facing new competitors without a clear roadmap from the past. From all of this, we would want to know how Apple made decisions, solve problems, and drive creativity in post-Jobs era. Later, my friend will explain this to you. Thank you.
After the death of Steve Jobs, Apple faced several major challenges. Steve Jobs was not just a CEO, he was the core visionary behind Apple's identity. He drove innovation with strong intuition, bold ideas, and a very unique leadership style. So when he passed away, the company entered a period of uncertainty. One of the biggest challenges was maintaining the culture of innovation. Steve Jobs had set a high standard with breakthrough products like the iPhone, iPad, and MacBook. After he was gone, innovation slowed and Apple struggled to create completely new categories at the same level. For example, competitors like Amazon and Google entered the smart speaker market earlier than Apple, showing a slower response compared to a Steve Jobs era. Another challenge was the leadership transition. Tim Cook, who took over, had a completely different way of leading. He was more data-driven, calm, and focused on operations rather than intuition or creativity. This created pressure, both inside and outside the company, because people questioned whether Apple could still innovate without its original visionary. Finally, Apple faced increasing competition and market pressure. Companies like Samsung, Microsoft, and Google were advancing quickly in technology. Apple had to balance innovation with shareholders' expectation and global scalability, which made fast experimentation and risk-taking more difficult. Even with these challenges, innovation remained extremely important for Apple, especially under Tim Cook. Innovation became the key factor that helped Apple stay relevant and competitive in the technology industry after Steve Jobs. First, innovation was important to help Apple stay ahead of its competitors. With strong competitors rapidly improving their technology, Apple needed continuous innovation to maintain its brand identity and product quality. Second, innovation allowed Apple to expand its ecosystem and reduce dependency on the iPhone. Under Tim Cook, Apple introduced successful new products like the Apple Watch and AirPods, and expanded it into digital services such as iCloud, Apple Music, and Apple TV. This innovation helped Apple diversify its revenue and create a more connected and convenient user experience. Finally, innovation also contributed to Apple's long-term sustainability and brand loyalty. Through improvement in privacy, environmental responsibility, and user experience, Apple maintained a strong global reputation and continued building trust with its customers. So, in summary, the transition after Steve Jobs created significant challenges for Apple, especially in innovation and leadership direction. However, innovation remained essential, and it allowed Apple not only to survive but continue growing under Tim Cook. While the innovation style changed, the importance of innovation stayed the same.
Hi everyone, my name is Luqman Nur Hakim and I will be presenting section 4.0, the decision making process. So, when Steve Jobs passed away, Apple didn't just lose a CEO, they lost their compass. This forced the company into a phase of non-program decision making. Unlike routine operational choices, these were unique, unstructured, and high-stakes situations with absolute no precedent to follow. Tim Cook and his team couldn't just look at the manual. They had to decide if they should stick to Jobs' design-first philosophy or evolve into something new. This transition happened under the condition of extreme uncertainty and risk. Uncertainty exists because technology moves so fast, and competitors like Samsung were closing in. There was no guarantee that new categories like wearables would succeed. However, Apple managed this risk through calculation. For products like Apple Watch and AirPods, they moved away from pure instinct and relied heavy on market surveys and data analytics to mitigate the chance of failure. This leads us to the core model they use, which is the behavioral or administrative decision model. This model recognizes bounded rationality, meaning that managers have to make decisions with incomplete information and cognitive limits. This is the biggest difference between the two eras. Steve Jobs led with intuition. Tim Cook, however, uses a collaborative, data-driven approach. He applies the concept of satisficing, seeking solutions that are practical and good enough, given the real-world constraints, rather than searching for an impossible perfect decision. Finally, there are three factors heavily influence this process. First, creativity shift from one man's vision to a collaborative effort between designers and engineers. Second, ethics became a decision-making pillar, specifically regarding user privacy and environmental goals like carbon neutrality. And third, group dynamics. Group dynamics become more inclusive, fostering a culture of shared responsibility rather than centralized authority. In conclusion, Apple successfully navigated the loss of their visionary by adopting a rational, team-based decision-making model that prioritizes stability.
My name is Nora Sofenisa, and now I will be talking about the outcome evaluations. Apple transition from Steve Jobs to Tim Cook was a major challenge because the company had to maintain innovation without its visionary founder. To address this, Apple maintained a collaboration functional structure which helped keep expertise centralized and integrated. And this allowed the company to continue developing complex products like M-series chips, Vision Pro, and advanced wearables. Overall, Apple remained highly profitable, technologically capable, and stable, proving that it could sustain innovation while navigating a major leadership change. Under Tim Cook, Apple's leadership style changed significantly compared to Steve Jobs. These changes shape how Apple makes decisions, innovates, and manages its values. Here are the 4 key leadership impacts. First, systematic. Cook introduced a more systematic and data-driven approach. This made Apple's decision more structured and consistent. Second, strengthen. He strengthened Apple's supply chain and teamwork, better coordinations across departments, improved overall efficiency. Third, steady. Cook's approach led to steady and reliable innovations, focusing on continual improvements rather than risky breakthroughs. Lastly, ethical. He increased Apple's focus on ethics, transparency, and sustainability, which helped build long-term trust with customers and stakeholders. Next, limitations and recommendations. Despite these successes, innovation under Cook has been more incremental than radical. Few products have had the cultural impact of the iPhone or Mac. Factors like status quo, bias, and ecosystem dependence can limit risk-taking and experimentations. To improve, Apple could promote more internal experimentation, support exploratory research teams, balance analytical decision making with creative intuitions. This could help Apple move beyond incremental changes and foster bolder innovations. To conclude our presentation, Apple successfully navigated the leadership transition from Jobs to Cook. Innovation today is no longer dependent on a single visionary, but on a collective effort, collaboration, and a strong ethical foundation. Apple adapted its culture, maintained its identity, and stayed competitive in the global technology industry. The company continues to balance creativity, structured decision-making, and ethical responsibility, ensuring its long-term success and relevance. And that's all from us. Thank you.